In the foggy hills of Cornwall, an old manor stands silent. Locals say it breathes when the wind moves through its broken windows. Once a year, on the night of Samhain, its halls awaken. That night, a traveler came, a man lost on the moor. His lantern burned low, his boots heavy with rain and fear. He saw the manor's single glowing window, a promise of warmth. The gates creaked open at his touch. The garden lay in ruins, statues cracked, trees dead, air heavy with silence. He stepped inside. The corridor stretched long and dim, cobwebs glittering like silver threads. The air smelled of dust, wine, and time long gone. At the end, a great dining hall lost in shadow. On the table lay nothing but dust, and then, as he blinked, silver goblets appeared, plates filled with food that shimmered faintly as if made of moonlight, a ghostly feast waiting for its guests. One by one, they arrived, pale figures in gowns and coats of another century, and at the head of the table, Lord Everton himself. The ghostly lord raised his glass. "Welcome, friend." His voice echoed like a breeze through hollow stone. The man stood frozen, lantern trembling in his hand. Curiosity, stronger than fear, drew him closer. He reached for the glowing bread. His fingers passed through it like smoke, and tiny sparks scattered in the air. The hall dimmed. Candles flickered. The warmth left the room. The traveler stumbled back as darkness swallowed the hall. Outside, the manor returned to silence. Dawn crept over the moors like a tired ghost. Mist still clung to the hills, and the manor of Lord Everton stood silent behind a veil of fog. The traveler, pale and trembling, walked down the muddy road. Each step sounded hollow, as though the earth itself no longer wanted him. He did not look back. He dared not. His small cottage waited for him at the edge of the valley, warm light glowing through its windows, the scent of smoke in the air. He told himself that once he crossed the threshold, the night would end, the memory would fade. He whispered that it had only been a dream, yet the dream had left its mark. A faint chill beneath his skin, a strange ache behind his eyes. Inside, the hearth crackled softly. He set his lantern on the table, but its flame flickered and dimmed as though exhausted from the journey. He poured himself a cup of tea, yet the steam rose and twisted into shapes, faces, smiles, hollow eyes. He blinked, and they were gone. But the chill in the room deepened. On the wall hung a tall mirror framed in dark oak. He had owned it for years, but tonight it seemed awake. Its glass shimmered faintly, reflecting not his small room, but a grand hall lined with candles. A table stretched across it, the same table he had seen at the manor, and around it, faintly visible, the guests. The ghosts feasted again. They raised their glasses in silence, pale laughter flickering across their faces. The traveler stepped closer, his heart pounding, breath shallow. He could smell the faint perfume of old wine, the sweet decay of long dead flowers. And at the far end of the mirrored table sat Lord Everton, watching him. "You left before the toast," the ghost said. The voice came not through the ears, but through the bones, soft, resonant,
to our
irresistible.
continued success.
The traveler stumbled back,
and
knocking over the lantern.
eternal
Shadows
suffering.
danced wildly on the walls. When he looked again, the mirror showed only himself. Yet his reflection smiled a heartbeat too late. That night, sleep would not come easily. The wind whispered outside, branches scraping against the shutters. He turned on his bed, clutching the blanket, whispering prayers he half remembered. But just before dawn, exhaustion took him. In his dream, he walked once more through fog. The manor stood waiting, its windows alight, its door open wide. Music drifted into the mist, a waltz played by unseen hands. He entered the hall, and this time the ghosts rose to greet him. They bowed, smiling, as though welcoming an old friend home. Lord Everton stood at the head of the table, his eyes pale as moonlight. "Come," he said softly. "The seat you left is waiting." The traveler hesitated, but his body moved of its own accord. He sat. The chair felt solid, warm, familiar. Before him appeared a plate, steaming gently in the candlelight. He lifted his fork. The food glowed faintly. Roast meat, bread, wine. He tasted it. For a moment, it was divine, the richest flavor he'd ever known.
Honored guests.
Then it turned to dust. His mouth filled with ash. His breath left him in a white mist. He looked down at his hands. They were fading, becoming translucent. His heartbeat slowed until it was only an echo. Across the table, the other guests raised their glasses in silent approval. Lord Everton smiled. "Now," he said, "you understand." Morning came once more to the valley. The traveler's cottage stood silent. The fire had gone cold. On the table, the teacup lay overturned, its contents frozen into a thin layer of frost. The mirror on the wall was no longer clear. Its surface shimmered like mist over water, and if one looked closely, very closely, they could see a long table deep within that foggy glass. Candles still burned there, and laughter still echoed softly. At the far end sat a new guest, pale, calm, and smiling, a faint lantern glow resting beside his plate. Somewhere beyond the hills of Cornwall, when the fog is thick and the wind drifts low, the manor of Lord Everton wakes once more, and in that endless banquet, one seat is always waiting for the next traveler who loses his way in the dark.